Somewhere in the world, there is a person whose full-time job is to stand in a queue. That's it. Their entire profession. You don't go to the queue, you hire someone else to experience it on your behalf, which, if you really think about it, is an extraordinary level of refusing inconvenience. Welcome to This Is Someone's Job, a show about the strangest ways people make a living. Because while most of us are standing in lines, checking our phones, slowly losing the will to live, someone else is standing there professionally. A professional line stand-in is exactly what it sounds like. Someone you pay to wait in line on your behalf. Concert tickets, production launches, government offices. If there's a queue, there's probably someone willing to stand in it for money. And somehow, as a society, we've collectively accepted this. Nobody hears, "Oh yes, I've outsourced my waiting," and reacts appropriately to that, which should probably concern us more than it does. In cities where time is apparently more valuable than dignity, people will pay someone else to wait for hours just to save themselves the inconvenience, which means somewhere along the way, someone thought, I hate queuing, but I don't mind being paid to do it for someone else. And just like that, a business model was born. And I think professional queuing only really works in cities where everybody is permanently in a rush. Places where people would rather spend money than spend 4 hours outside a shop waiting for trainers they absolutely do not need. At some point, convenience became so important that we started outsourcing our boredom. A typical day might involve arriving early, securing a good spot, and then waiting. And then waiting more. Maybe making small talk with other people in the queue who actually need to be there. Then, at the last moment, the client shows up, takes your place, and you just leave. Like some kind of queue-based ghost. And the strange thing is, queuing professionally probably requires skill. You need patience, commitment, possible weather resistance, the ability to defend your place in line with quiet confidence. There are probably elite queue stand-ins, people with reputations, veterans of Black Friday incidents. Imagine arriving at a queue and seeing someone who looks far too comfortable. Clipboard in one hand, coffee in the other. Proper queuing posture. That's not an amateur, they're a professional. Of course, if you're going to stand in queues professionally, you're probably going to need equipment. Now, not in the traditional sense. There's no official queue stand-in starter pack, but I imagine there's a kit bag. There has to be a kit bag. A folding chair, a phone charger, a power bank the size of a car battery, snacks, water, possibly a waterproof jacket, because when your office is a pavement, the weather becomes part of the job description. In fact, I argue that a professional queue stand-in probably has a more carefully considered bag than most hikers. They're preparing for hours of inactivity, which is a very specific challenge. You don't want to be 3 hours into a queue and suddenly realise you've forgotten your charger. That's the professional equivalent of a builder turning up without a hammer. And you just know they're veterans, people who can look at a queue immediately and know, right, that's a 2-snack queue. Better bring the big power bank this time. The modern world has become so focused on efficiency that even waiting in line now feels like too inefficient, which is strange, because queues used to be part of life. Now they're apparently a premium inconvenience. It sounds simple, but it takes patience, reliability, and a high tolerance for boredom and possibly bad weather. Also, explaining your job probably gets very old quickly. What do you do? I stand in lines. What, on purpose? And that's the thing. No matter how strange a job sounds, there's probably someone out there doing it, getting paid, paying taxes, explaining it to their family at dinner. Maybe every strange profession starts the same way. someone caring about something slightly more than everyone else, until eventually the world decides, fine, we'll pay for it. And if by any chance you happen to have an unusual job yourself, or know someone whose career sounds completely made up, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Because statistically speaking, one of you listening right now is probably employed in something deeply confusing. You can reach the show at thatissomeonesjob@gmail.com. And of course, if your job is to stand in a queue, I would love to have a chat. And tomorrow, while most of us are trying to avoid queues entirely, someone, somewhere, will already be standing in one professionally. Thank you for listening to This Is Someone's Job.